Inspirasi Infora Islami. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good afternoon to the dear listeners of IKIM FM. Welcome to another episode of Shaping Tomorrow. I'm your host Batrisyia Afrina. And dear listeners, in a previous episode we heard a pre-recorded talk from Emma Amina Clark, a senior tutor at the Prince Foundation School of Traditional Arts in the United Kingdom. And in that talk, she talks for IKIM's International Symposium on Sustainability. What can the civilization of Islam offer that happened on the 31st October ago? And in that talk, she spoke about reviving traditional Islamic gardens. And of course, her talk in a way provided a new insights into viewing sustainability from an Islamic perspective. And for today, listeners, we will look at the principles and the practices embedded in Islamic teachings that contribute to the building a sustainable and harmonious world. So to discuss it, we have a family guest on the show, Dr. Syafiq Borhannuddin, fellow at the Center for Economics and Social Studies, IKIM. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Syafiq. How are you?
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. I'm good. Thank you, Patricia.
Alhamdulillah. And doctor, our topic for today is sustainability and role of Islamic civilization. So doctor, personally, I told you before about this. This is actually something novel for me, and I believe some for the public out there, because usually when we talk about the sustainability, we look at it in this framework. However, today, Doctor, you will enlighten us that we could also seek inspiration from the rich legacy of Islamic civilization to address these challenges. So, Doctor, share with us what is the role of Islamic civilization when talking about sustainability?
Thank you very much, Patricia. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Um, uh, First of all, yes, indeed. I would like to preface before I begin, by the way, that we would like to welcome Patricia as our new producer
Thank you.
for Shaping Tomorrow, because we've been on 9 seasons, and Alhamdulillah, now we have a new producer to continue this journey, and hopefully we can learn from you as well, Patricia, and continue to contribute meaningfully through IKIM Radio and as well as this radio show. For this topic, indeed, recently IKIM as a think tank, we hosted an international symposium called Sustainability: What Can Islamic Civilization Offer? And one of the reasons we decided to convene that is because, and indeed one of the speakers that was the one mentioned by Patricia earlier, Madam Emma Amina Clark from the UK. We also had Datuk Sri Zaini Ujang, who's the Secretary General for the Ministry of Health previously. He's done a lot of work on environment, obviously, someone very renowned in Malaysia in that regard. We also had former Director General of IKIM, Dr. Saidi Taufik Alatas, to get his insights from the perspective of Islamic thought and civilization. As well, we had a young speaker from a think tank called ASLI, Asian Strategy and Leadership Institute, whose CEO, Daniel Rahman, is someone we was hoping to get insights on based on his experiences working in various ministries and the government. So, and of course, I represented IKIM, although not on my own. I had consultations with more senior scholars in IKIM, namely Dr. Muhammad Zaidi Ismail, the Deputy Director General of IKIM, and Dr. Muhammad Sani Badrun, my immediate superior. So what we hope to do is to show that, or to show the world maybe that that not only we can contribute from the Islamic perspective, but as a civilization, the Muslims have a lot to offer to the world that maybe can fill existing gaps or any shortcomings of ongoing efforts, because I think as the reports go, I think even representatives of UN are saying that they are falling back in terms of achieving those sustainable development goals that they set out to achieve by 2030. So perhaps it's time for us to for the Muslim world, for the Muslim, not only in Malaysia but in the Muslim world, to step up and try to put together what we have in our uh, disposal in terms of our rich history, our heritage, our disciplines of knowledge that perhaps can enrich further on this question of sustainability, which of course is a concern for everyone globally. So I would like to. I think this particular statement by James Gustav Speth, he was the former chair of the United Nations Sustainable Development Group, and a former dean of the Yale School of Environment in the US. We felt that this particular statement by Professor James is quite instructive for us to build on whatever efforts that has been done in the previous decades on the question of sustainability, because I think he's very forthright in terms of what are the shortcomings are in the global arena, because as he said here, for a very long time he thought that 30 years of good science, which was the dominant approach in addressing sustainable problems pertaining to the environment and society, like biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. He thought it could be solved merely with modern science. But then he realized, and I'm sure there are more and more people, even in the West, who are thinking like this. He said that he was wrong, and in reality, the top environmental problems and all those connected to that, including the social and moral problems, are in reality selfishness, greed, and apathy or indifference to the kind of problems that we face, the scale of the problems that we face. And most interestingly, Professor James Gustav Spath said, to deal with this kind of problem in reality, we need a cultural and spiritual transformation, and we lawyers and scientists don't know how to do that, he said. So this is a very, I feel, very important and instructive um, indication or statement in terms of how it's about time that Muslim world, with its vast legacy of Islamic civilization, uh, we step up and try to contribute meaningfully to the world on this discourse. Why Islamic civilization? Because as our listeners may know, although it's a 1,000-year experience, it has a 1,000-year experience. It's not something that is merely a historical sort of specimen, as if it's something for us to study in the museum, in the historical textbooks. But many learned minds feel that it remains the experiences that Islamic civilization had and have remain instructive today, meaning that there is still relevant. It's still relevant in many ways, in various ways, to solve our problems.
Mm-hmm.
And some Muslim scholars are also saying that Islamic civilization is a living civilization. It's not a dead civilization like some ancient civilization. Like you have some ancient civilizations which are no longer present. It's something that we only read about in historical
Mm-hmm.
books,
It's
history
like
books,
no
right?
longer relevant, doctor.
Like it's no longer relevant. But in our
Mm-hmm.
case, it's we affirm and we strongly hold that it's a living civilization, because Muslims are still widely living everywhere, and they're still striving to enact the Islamic teachings in its best possible way, not only in a personalized way of like only in their homes, but
Mm-hmm.
everywhere in a huge way, especially in Muslim majority countries.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think this definition of what an Islamic civilization is by Professor Syed Muhammad Nakib Alatas, a Malaysian scholar of Islam, He said it is a civilization that emerges among the diversity of cultures of Muslim peoples of the world as a result of the permeation of the basic elements of the religion of Islam, which those people have caused to emerge from themselves. So, meaning, I think beyond the usual classification of we have Muslim majority countries or OIC countries, right? Which is we as a whole, as a collective, what we have is a civilization, and that uh, that is now being more and more recognized in the international political sort of theory, even because like
Mm-hmm.
China is continuously affirming itself to be a civilization state, not only a nation state. Russia is saying that also, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important because so that although the Western civilization may not intend to impose its hegemony to push to as if insist that they are the only civilization, I think sometimes it people tend to think that oh they are the only uh, sort of surviving civilization today because Western civilization they are controlling everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's time now we reaffirm that Islamization is still out there, and
Mm-hmm.
that people are still are living it in a big scale.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, we have to remember when we speak of these different civilizations, of course, we can have more comparisons with the Chinese or ASEAN civilizations, but I mean, that is too, I mean, we can talk about that some other time. But in the
Mm-hmm.
interest of time, just to compare between the Islamic and the modern Western secular civilization, why we need to talk about them in civilizational framing because there are differences in terms of in terms of the concepts, in terms of how we understand what the problems are, in terms of how we understand the solutions are.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, like very briefly, Islamic civilization, like what some of the main difference with modern Western secular civilization is that, of course, God is very much in the picture to such an extent that even how everything is sort of arranged in this universe in terms of its environmental landscape, this whole cosmic reality that we see. For us, for Muslims, there is a certain design and certain order. This is the basic assumption. But in the
Mm-hmm.
Western secular civilization, they see things as in a state of chaos. Everything there's no order. The opposite of order is or cosmos, which is another word that they use in the West is cosmos, and the
Mm-hmm.
opposite of cosmos and order is chaos. So this is
Mm-hmm.
in reality a very philosophical thing, you see. But we don't
Mm-hmm.
see this basic premise, basic position between
Mm-hmm.
civilizations. So that's why in modern Western civilization, when they see things in chaos, and they teach this in universities, this is the
Mm-hmm.
basic assumption of modern science. When they see everything in the world, the environment, nature in chaos, therefore, what a civilization does tend to do is they want to control that environment. They want to impose it with technology, with their whole
Mm-hmm.
machinery, so that they can bring some kind of order in the world. But in the Muslim world, in the Islamic civilization, it's the other way around. There's already
Mm-hmm.
order in the world, so all you have to do is try to blend in and live in harmony with the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So these are, I think, it's very important for us to see this basic difference behind our conversations and behind our ideas and perspectives so that we can appreciate each other more in the
Mm-hmm.
world. So this is, I mean, it's my attempt to present the overall structure of how the Islamic civilization sees itself, right? Um, uh, uh, at the uppermost structure of this. Before that, I should mention to our listeners, in case they are listening on radio, that I'm also showing slides, if they are following on our social media, there is a video that we are displaying as well.
Yes, you
So
can
on,
watch it on YouTube and Facebook, Doctor.
that's right, that's right. So on the current screen, on the current slide that I'm showing, I'm attempting to outline the overall structure in terms of how the Islamic civilization orders its view of the world, of reality, of this existence, that will lead to a different way of offering solutions. So there is because of the revelation of the Quran, they have a certain vision of, I call it metaphysical vision, meaning it's not limited to just a physical vision in terms of the physical world of this dunya, but also there's akhirah. So that is taken, that has a bearing in terms of how Muslims conduct themselves. There's akhirah, there's hereafter. So they know that they cannot simply do whatever they like in this world. They need to act in, you know, in relation to what's going to happen in akhirah. So that's
Mhm.
number one. There's a metaphysical vision, a broad vision, and that is permeated in the languages of the Muslim community everywhere. When they speak, right, there is that consciousness, and then out underneath that, you know, because of that revelation, Muslims have sort of religious sciences or Islamic sciences, so that they can really understand their themselves, their purpose, uh, and 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 so that they can be spiritually and morally upright, right? And then beyond that, so I call that theoretical wisdom, and then beneath that there is practical wisdom in terms of, there's a great deal of teachings in terms of how we should govern ourselves, our family,
Mhm.
our society, our countries. And then the outcome of all that, that prior three structures I just mentioned, is to achieve justice, but not only in relation to the others, but also in relation to ourselves. In the secular West, they only speak of justice in terms of a two-party context, meaning how will I be just in relation to that person and the other person. But in the Muslim civilization, it's
Mhm.
first and foremost the self has to be just to your soul. You know, you don't transgress your limits. So that there is that difference as well. And
Mhm.
then and then ultimately the goal is happiness in Islamic civilization. This is still a possibility. I mean, we still believe we can experience this. We know we can experience this is why we lead our lives in a certain way, and regardless if no matter how severe worldly conditions can be, we will still remain sort of firm in terms of our belief and how we carry out our lives. So example is exactly what is happening to our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Some of them may be very sad in terms of when they lose their loved ones,
Mhm.
but many of them, they express the Islamic invocations. You know, they sometimes they even express gratitude to Allah for granting them martyrdom, shahid,
Mhm. Shahid.
because it's a special thing to achieve that. So
Yeah.
you see, the perspective is very different. So in other words, they are happy, although although they are being tested. The word for that is
Mhm.
bala in the Arabic language. They are being tested. They know that, but
Mhm.
internally, deep down inside, they know that their loved ones are going to somewhere better. So that is
Mhm.
what we mean by, there's a tranquility in the soul. There is certainty. This is yaqeen, right? So
Mhm.
this is what. So I'm saying that Islamic civilization has a very their own sustainable model. So no matter how terrible conditions may be inflicted upon them, they can
Mhm.
still survive and do good things in the world. So this to me is a very profound sustainable model that we can offer to the world. Okay, so I'm going to skip several slides because we may have to continue some other time in the interest of time. So if we were to, because these days when the international community speaks of sustainability, is
Mhm.
spoken in the context of sustainable development, meaning it is an approach to development that is much more sustainable than what they conceived before. So
Mhm.
we're saying for centuries, that is precisely the kind of developmental model that Muslims already had to begin with.
And it
Before,
is already sustainable.
it's already, by definition, Islam is a sustainable religion. That's why one of the
Mhm.
terms or one of the expressions to describe the religion of Islam is Dinul Fitrah. It, a religion that is in accordance with the natural inclination of human being and the environment. Fitrah
Mhm.
means natural inclination. So the religion of Islam is a religion of fitrah. That is something that is suitable to human well-being, to environmental uh, well-being also, to
Mhm.
environmental health, to spiritual health, to psychological health. By definition, the religion of Islam, and by extension, the civilization of Islam, is a sustainable religion because that is the whole purpose. God sent prophets, and finally the Prophet Muhammad SAW, on
Mhm.
earth to correct injustices, to correct imbalances, to correct disorder. That is the purpose of Islam. But unfortunately, why we are not seeing that the Muslim world is at the forefront of this, because we have forgotten all this. We have been confused,
Mhm.
or we have been ignorant, or we have not been educated or taught properly about the
Mhm.
full reality about Islam as a civilization. Because Islam is not only a matter of rituals, as we all know, but it has
Mhm.
proven, it has a track record more than 1,000 years.
Mhm.
It produces civilization, and
Mhm.
right, and this civilization has a different vision, a different aspiration, and different way of doing things. Okay, now I'm going to show several visuals to illustrate what I mean. This is one example of the traditional Islamic garden. Islamic garden, like even the whole way of designing a garden has a certain has a different way of sort of design for as far as the
Mhm.
Muslim civilization is concerned.
Mhm.
And this is actually not done in a Muslim country or Muslim place, Muslim society. This is done in
Oh.
England. By whom?
Oh.
By none other than King Charles, who is a big fan of traditional Islamic gardens. This is his personal
Mm.
Islamic garden
Oh.
that was designed by Emma Clark, one of the speakers that we invited for IKIM's symposium on sustainability. So
Mm.
interestingly, there are no Muslims or who are sort of or somebody of great standing in the Western
Mhm.
civilization who appreciates Islamic an aspect of Islamic civilization, which is this Islamic
Mhm.
garden. And King Charles, who is the current king of Britain,
Uh-huh.
he has this is in his personal residence, and he has his own Islamic garden designed by a Muslim garden designer.
So the picture that you are showing is his personal garden
This
right now.
is his personal garden, and it's an Islamic garden. It
Masya
has
Allah.
Islamic symbolism. It has an Islamic design of it, and the fountain at
Mhm.
the middle is a characteristic of Islamic garden, because it
Mhm.
for Muslims, water symbolizes knowledge, but the divine kind of knowledge,
Mhm.
So, and but as a whole, this Islamic garden rich is a symbol of the spiritual, the
Mhm.
Muslim who has a spiritual tranquility.
Mhm.
It's a sort of a reflection, and it's a symbolism to
Mhm.
show that this is how Muslims feel inwardly. I mean, all of the artistic products or artistic expressions of the Muslim is basically that. It's like it's they want to show their gratitude to Allah. That's number one, of course, and but also to show that as a result of that, you get spiritual inner peace, spiritual
Mhm.
tranquility. So the garden is one manifestation or one example of that, right?
Mhm.
And then of course there are all these sort of practice, all this manifestation is everywhere in the Muslim world. If you go to this is Alhambra, Muslim Spain. uh,
Mhm.
you know Before, for centuries, for several hundred years, Muslims governed Spain,
Mhm.
and this is one of their sort of landmarks. This is an Alhambra, Granada, right?
Mhm.
In what they used to call Andalusia. So even then, this is, I think, one of the sort of palaces or the complexes of the rulers in Muslim Spain. But then they wanted to make sure that, because they understood that Allah already sort of designed the environment in a there is already order
Mhm.
in the environment. They want to make sure they blend, and they build the architecture in harmony with environment. So it's very green,
Yeah.
much more green than a lot of our architecture and buildings today.
Mhm.
So water is there, the trees are there put in place, and this is in Istanbul, Sultan Ahmed area,
Mhm.
the old Istanbul area, which is still more or less well preserved, like how it was hundreds of years ago. The mosque is there, you can see over there, and then the
Mhm.
center there's a big huge fountain. On the side there, there's a public bath. They call it the hammam. On the right
Mm-hmm.
side there's a madrasah. There's even a hospital. It's a whole ecosystem, a complete ecosystem, where they put into practice what Islam teaches, right?
So, doctor, in a way, it's sort of like reflecting the religion itself, the architecture, right?
Yes, everything, the architecture, the gardens, the design,
Mm-hmm.
and everything. So as a result, you don't have in the past. I don't think there is such high levels of mental health problems or psychological problems, because
Mm-hmm.
everything was already promoting psychological health, already make
Mm-hmm.
ensuring that people have mental health. Everything is balanced. Everything is, yeah. That is
Mm-hmm.
what this is our solution to the question of mental health today. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
of course, you can have many psychologists open
Yeah.
up a lot of mental health institutions and hospitals, mental health
Mm-hmm.
clinics,
Mm-hmm.
but that is not in really solving the problem. That is just sort of a short fix. But you want a very complete, more comprehensive solution to that mental health problems as well as environmental problems. You need to
Mm-hmm.
design the whole civilization in a way that is in accordance to fitra, which is
Mm-hmm.
what Islam is all about,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Understood.
Yeah. So, and
Mm-hmm.
this is well recorded, and Muslims have written about it. They have manuscripts. On the left
Mm-hmm.
is one example of, like manuscripts. Sometimes they would draw pictures in it to describe
Mm-hmm.
what they understand by like this is a manuscript on the garden, and then this one is like a more than 1,000 page manuscript that was from Muslim Spain, like
Mm-hmm.
500-600 years ago, about traditional Muslim husbandry, excuse me, or agriculture. So there is even a very different understanding of agriculture, and there's an entire science in terms of how Muslims want to design their environment so that it doesn't go beyond the limit of the environment. You see, so
Mm-hmm.
but then this knowledge is not well known because it's not being studied as much, because we study more the STEM sciences. The emphasis these days is on technology, for instance, because we think that technology will all solve our problems. But unfortunately, a lot of our policymakers, I don't think they are quite aware in terms of what kind of solution and potential Islamic civilization can offer to the problems that
Mm-hmm.
they seek to achieve. Of course, we all agree there's problems: skyrocketing mental health, skyrocketing environmental destruction.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the solution is right underneath your nose, meaning to say it's right
Mm-hmm.
in your own history, your own tradition, your own civilization. So we need to invest a lot more money to this, to this kind of quest, this kind of
Mm-hmm.
pursuits, to study these manuscripts, to study the designs of our cities, to see what is the
Mm-hmm.
wisdom behind this. Because there is a
Mm-hmm.
certain wisdom, which ultimately they derive inspiration from the works of the scholars of the past, like this kind of writings,
Mm-hmm.
which goes back from, and the principles are ultimately derived from the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad, the statements of the Prophet Muhammad. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why, as a result, there's a different concepts, there's different way of looking at the problem, and a different solution ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And usually, doctor, before we go further into that, because usually when we're talking about, solving a problem, they would say like, "Oh, we haven't yet created a solution." But in a way, the way that you're saying, as if that actually we don't have to find a new solution because the solution is already there. When we talk about in Islamic perspective.
Yes, the
Mm-hmm.
solution is there, but then you need people who really understand these things to be
Mm-hmm.
part of the solution. You cannot simply rely on just anyone. Of course, we have,
Mm-hmm.
Alhamdulillah, we have many good experts in the Muslim world and in Malaysia. Experts on
Mm-hmm.
environment, experts on sciences, the modern sciences, experts on technology. We can still
Mm-hmm.
benefit from all this expertise, but at the same time, we need to make sure you benefit from the kind of expertise who knows about Islamic civilization, for instance, who knows about
Mm-hmm.
the Islamic. history, Islamic heritage, Islamic designs, Islamic gardens, Islamic philosophy, Islamic ethics, all that you must include them in the conversation as part of the problem solving quest. Don't exclude them. Right now, sometimes we are not involving them enough. Alhamdulillah, at least we have
Mm-hmm.
institutions like IKIM
Mm-hmm.
to study this, to research this. At IKIM, we have a rare books collection. We have a library on Islamic civilization, but
Mm-hmm.
we need more support, we need more funds, we need more researchers, we need more
Mm-hmm.
people, we need more investments, we need more, because otherwise people don't see the potential, and we're doing all we can. As Alhamdulillah, at
Mm-hmm.
IKIM, we're doing the best we can to
Mm-hmm.
create awareness on this, and to educate people on this, right? But so yeah, sorry, I forgot your question, but yeah, I hope I'm
Mm-hmm.
still responding to your question.
No, I'm just restating your statement
Yeah,
because it's a very I would say a different perspective than the previous one.
yeah, yeah. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, these days, when the world speaks of sustainable development goals, because
Mm-hmm.
basically now uh, everyone is all out to achieve those 17 sustainable development goals
Yes.
already outlined and defined by United Nations, which is fine,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. But
Mm-hmm.
but then I think if you really want to consider what Islamic civilization has to offer, I think maybe we can solve a lot of the problems that they are struggling with, because they themselves have confessed that the United Nations themselves have confessed that they are struggling in terms of achieving these
Mm-hmm.
goals. So maybe if they give the Muslim world with its right experts, with the right
Mm-hmm.
representatives to come into the picture and try to contribute more meaningfully, maybe we can solve a lot of these problems. So this basically is my attempt to redesign those
Mm-hmm.
goals so that it's more in agreeable, or more sort of, yeah, more consistent with the Islamic civilization's vision of development, because it has to start somewhere, right? For example, like here,
Mm-hmm.
I'm suggesting it should start with quality education as defined by Muslim civilization, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not suggesting that we need more Islamic classes in school
Mm-hmm.
at all. That's not what we're suggesting. We're saying yes, we all agree with all the concerns of Malaysians out there. We really
Mm-hmm.
need to enhance the quality of education, but by education we mean the teachers also must be properly trained. They need to be
Mm-hmm.
exposed to this kind of thing that we are sharing.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know that education does not merely mean you're just feeding students facts after
Mm-hmm.
facts after facts, and you try to rush finishing the syllabus in each
Yes.
class, right? Just show
Yes.
all the slides we can, and hopefully the students will pass the exam.
Yeah.
We don't, yeah, maybe that it has that there is a role for that, but education is not just that. Education means you need to educate the intellect, educate the
Mm-hmm.
soul, also educate the heart. Everything needs to
Mm-hmm.
be educated properly, and there is a lot has been written about this in the Islamic civilization. It's all there. The solution is there. You just need to ask the right experts. That's why now, aside from quality education, I mentioned here in the diagram, there needs to be a promotion of justice. And justice includes getting the right people to help you with solving these problems, to the right people to advise on the question of education, the right people to 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 help you, to help governments, and to help policymakers on problems of the environment, and psychological health and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. Yeah. So yeah, basically this is what we briefly presented in the recent IKIM International Symposium on Sustainability on 31st October 2023. So
Mm-hmm.
may I conclude now, Patricia, with the last
Mm-hmm.
slide? Okay,
Yes.
okay. So just 3 points that I would like to posit for the consideration of our audience. Number one is that uh, when we speak of a lot of the sustainable problems that we face today, because sustainable problems is not just environmental, and the UN also sees it that way. Sustainable problem is also a social problem, and also
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how we govern our society. But for the Muslim Islamic civilization, there is a deeper root cause, which goes back to what that Professor Joseph Gustav Speth stated, which we shared in the beginning of this um, session, which is in reality all these problems is a problem of greed, a problem of apathy or indifference, a problem of it's a cultural and spiritual problem. Even someone who has worked for the UN is saying that, but I don't think it's widely
Mm-hmm.
accepted yet. So that's why I think we need to reinforce that message. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've already reached out to this professor, but he's retired unfortunately. So
Oh.
so we'll see what we can do. So
Mm-hmm.
so so number two, the Sustainable Development Goals has its shortcomings, and people in the West are also starting to say this. In the Nordic countries, there's a group of people and professionals and even corporations like IKEA is saying that we need inner development goals because the Sustainable Development Goals is not enough. So
Mm-hmm.
even some people in Western civilization are saying that we need something more. It's not enough, and it's not meaningful enough as well for the people to execute. So
Mm-hmm.
similarly, in I think in the we can say that in the Islamic civilization, I think we have a lot to contribute also, so that it can be more substantial and more profound in terms of its solution to solve this sustainable problem challenges. And finally, I think one of the important contribution Islamic civilization can make is yes, there are many practices of examples of beautiful gardens, beautiful cities, traditional Muslim cities that we have, but I think internally there is sort of a wisdom that I shared earlier about practical wisdom. There are practical wisdom also we need to adopt in terms of how do you govern yourself, govern your family, and govern the state. Because this is a great deal of wisdom that is not being taught in many universities in the Muslim world even. And but as a whole, I'm saying that maybe the term we can adopt, excuse me, in Muslim nations
Mm-hmm.
is a whole of civilization approach, because these days when people speak of SDG or sustainability, they're saying we need a whole of a society approach, meaning everyone in society needs to be part of it, needs to be part of the solution. They need to
Mm-hmm.
recycle more and whatnot. But I'm saying even more than that, we need a
Mm-hmm.
whole of a civilization approach, meaning you need to bring in Islamic civilization, you need to bring in Asian civilization, because indeed in Malaysia is a multicultural, multi-religious
Mm-hmm.
country. So we can also benefit from the wisdom of Asian civilizations, from the
Mm-hmm.
Chinese community, from the Indian community, in the indigenous Orang Asli community. They have many insights about how to live in harmony with the environment, and in how to live a more moral life in society. All that we can agree with the Islamic civilization, no problem. We don't have to insist as if Islamic civilization is the only way, this is the only truth. No, we're not saying that at all.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying we need to adopt a whole of civilization approach so that we can together we can solve our problems more effectively, more profoundly.
Mm-hmm.
And countries like China, they are also talking about a whole of civilization approach. That's why they have formulated what they
Mm-hmm.
called ecological civilization vision, that is based on the Chinese wisdom of Confucius or Lao Tzu, of all those great Chinese philosophers of the past,
Mm-hmm.
so that people can have a more if especially in China, you need that kind of thing to really inspire and drive people
Mm-hmm.
forward, as well as the fact that those wisdom are still relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's all perhaps I could share for
Mm-hmm.
now. Patricia, thank you very much. And yeah, I hope that was useful.
Thank you, Doctor, for your insights. And in a way, that what can I conclude from today's interview is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but Islamic civilization can offer as an alternative to the SDG that you mentioned just now, that is flawed by design due to the implicit worldview of its designers. And with that being said, listeners, I would like to thank Dr. Syafiq for his insights on today's topic, sustainability role of Islamic civilization. We hope that today's interview will be beneficial to those who are listening to us through radio or even watching us through Facebook and YouTube. And again, Doctor, thank you for your insights for today's topic. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Thank you, Batrisyia.
And listeners, if you miss any part of the show, you can watch it again through our Facebook page, IKIM FM, and on our YouTube, IKIM Media. So we'll be back next week with more interesting topics. So don't change the radio station. Stay tuned to IKIM FM, Inspirasi Infora Islami.